Have you ever wondered why a village of just 2,600 people in upstate New York became the epicenter of baseball history? That is what happened on June 12th, 1939, when Cooperstown, New York transformed from a quiet community into the heart of the baseball universe. It's a fascinating story of how a small town became home to the world's very first Sports Hall of Fame. Welcome to the channel. It's great to see you. The story actually begins with a lie, or at least a very persistent myth. In 1839, according to legend, a young West Point cadet named Abner Doubleday laid out the first baseball diamond in a cow pasture in Cooperstown, New York, thereby inventing America's national pastime. But here's the thing. Doubleday was actually at West Point during the summer of 1839, not gallivanting around upstate New York teaching children how to play ball. The man himself never claimed to have invented baseball, and he barely mentioned the sport in his extensive writings. So how did this myth become so powerful that it shaped the location of the most important museum in sports? Enter into the story Albert Spalding. Yes, that Spalding, the sporting goods magnate. He was a pitcher and a manager in baseball before turning his attention to sporting goods. In 1905, facing criticism from British writers who claimed baseball descended from the English game of rounders, Spalding formed a commission to prove baseball was purely American. He wasn't interested in the truth. He wanted patriotic validation. The Mills Commission, led by A.G. Mills, solicited stories from the public about baseball origins. Most responses were forgettable, but then came a letter from 71-year-old mining engineer named Abner Graves of Denver, Colorado. Graves claimed that in 1839, when he was just 5 years old, he witnessed Doubleday create the game of baseball in Cooperstown. Think about that. A 5-year-old remembering specific rules and field layouts from 66 years earlier. But Spalding loved this story because it gave baseball an American birth certificate in a charming small town. In 1907, the Mills Commission officially credited Doubleday with inventing baseball. Despite having no evidence beyond one elderly man's childhood memories, the myth was now official, and Cooperstown was forever linked to baseball's supposed beginning. Alright, so fast forward in time to the 1930s. Cooperstown is struggling. The Great Depression has devastated the local economy, and the end of Prohibition killed the hops industry that had sustained the region. The village needed something, anything, to bring in tourists and money. That's when Stephen Carlton Clark enters the story. Clark was the heir to the Singer sewing machine fortune. We're talking about serious money here. More importantly, he was a philanthropist with a vision and deep pockets. Clark had already built the Otesaga Hotel in Cooperstown in 1909, and he understood the power of tourism. In 1934, Clark approached Ford Frick, who had just become the president of the National League. Clark's pitch was simple. What if we created a baseball museum and Hall of Fame right here in Cooperstown, the supposed birthplace of baseball? Frick loved the idea. Okay, but why a Hall of Fame at all? The concept wasn't new. In fact, it has roots stretching back to the ancient Norse mythology and Valhalla, the great hall where warriors went after death. By the 1930s, the idea of memorializing greatness had been around for decades. The Hall for Great Americans had already opened in the Bronx in 1901, the very first institution in the United States to use the phrase Hall of Fame. Designed by famous architect Stanford White, it honored distinguished Americans from all walks of life: scientists, artists, politicians, and writers, but notably, no athletes. The American Hall was inspired by King Ludwig I of Bavaria's Walhalla, completed in 1842, and the Ruhmeshalle in Munich in 1853, which literally means Hall of Fame in German. These monuments celebrate great German-speaking figures and establish the template for honoring human achievement in stone and bronze. So why do we as humans feel compelled to create these temples to greatness? Psychologists tell us it stems from our fundamental need for recognition and our desire to achieve a form of immortality. We want to be remembered, to matter, to have achievements live on after we're gone. Halls of Fame and monuments serve another crucial purpose. They create a shared cultural identity. They tell us who we are as people, what we value, and what kinds of achievements matter. For Americans in the 1930s, baseball wasn't just a sport. It was a defining element of national character. With Frick's support, Clark moved quickly. In 1935, they announced plans for a National Baseball Hall of Fame. The timing was perfect. 1939 would mark the supposed centennial of baseball, giving them a perfect marketing hook. The first election was held in 1936, with baseball writers choosing from any player in sports history. 5 legends made the cut: Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, and Honus Wagner. Over the next 3 years, 20 more players, managers, and executives would join them. And then came the day itself. June 12, 1939. Cooperstown's population of 2,600 was overwhelmed by 15,000 visitors who flooded the tiny village. All major league games were canceled for the day, something that had never happened before. 11 of the 25 inductees were still alive and made the journey to Cooperstown. Picture this: Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Honus Wagner, and other legends of the game all gathered in one place. Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, baseball's commissioner, officially dedicated the museum. After the ceremony, they held an exhibition game at the newly constructed Doubleday Field. 32 Major League stars played in what was essentially an all-star game. But the real showstopper came when Babe Ruth, then 44 years old and officially retired, grabbed a bat and stepped up to the plate. The crowd went crazy. As one 8-year-old witness later recalled, "My gosh, there were more people than cows." The entire event was broadcast nationally on radio, marking Cooperstown's place in American culture. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Tourism to Cooperstown exploded, and the village's economy was transformed overnight. The Baseball Hall of Fame became the template for every sports Hall of Fame that followed, and there would be many. Today, there are Hall of Fames for football, basketball, hockey, golf, tennis, and dozens of other sports. But baseball came first, establishing the model of democratic election, bronze plaques, and a pilgrimage-worthy location. Here's the beautiful irony. Even though we now know the Doubleday story is false, historians definitively debunked it decades ago. Cooperstown remains baseball's spiritual home. The myth became more powerful than the truth. The Hall of Fame succeeded not because of where baseball was actually invented, but because it tapped into something deeper: our need for sacred spaces, for places where we can touch greatness and connect with the stories that define us. The opening of the Baseball Hall of Fame on June 12, 1939 was more than just a museum dedication. It was a creation of America's first sports shrine, a place where athletic achievement could be honored alongside the greatest accomplishments in any field. Stephen Clark's vision, Ford Frick's support, and even Abner Graves' questionable memories combined to create something truly special. Proof that sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones that are true, but the ones that capture our imagination and refuse to let go. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this look into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It was great to see you, and thanks for exploring this story with me. Until we meet again, let's play ball.